Welcome to the new episode. And today we're going to take a look at amortization schedules for debt, for loans. And this is pretty much a structure where you get your loan, your interest rate, and you're paying an equal amount for a specific number of periods. And this amount is split between interest and principal repayment. And the idea is that you pay the same amount each month, but the interest portion of it drops as you're repaying a larger portion of your principal. What I ended up doing recently is doing a lot of modeling for potential acquisitions, and the whole idea is that you buy a company or a business or a product line or whatever, and you want to take debt to purchase this entity. But the idea is to figure out if what the entity is going to be bringing in as cash is going to be enough to cover this debt, and then on top of that have some left for you, for your company. There are a few ways to do that, and we're going to start with a full amortization schedule and show you how to calculate that in Excel. And then we're going to move on to what you can do if you have less information or you don't know everything about the loan, or the loan is not yet taken and you can just apply some assumptions. By the way, guys, before we move on, if you're enjoying the content, thumbs up will be awesome, and a sub to the channel will be amazing. Let's open Excel and dive straight in. Let's consider the following simple scenario. So what we have here is we're pretty much at the end of our model. We have our cash from operations. And I've named this cash from operations, but this can be your free cash flow, your EBITDA. Pretty much you're at this point where the only thing left to do for the purpose of keeping this simple is to figure out how much you have to pay for servicing your debt. This is your principal debt repayment and also your interest charges. And after deducting those, we can then see what's left for distribution to our parent company or shareholders, or reinvesting in the business, and so on. So we have the following loan that we've taken out in our first year, 2021. That's 22.5 million at a 5% interest rate and 60 months repayment period. So what we want to do is we want to build what's called an amortization schedule. So for loans, we can amortize them, meaning that we're gonna repay the same amount every period, every month in this case, and this amount is gonna be split differently between interest and principal, because the idea is that as our principal drops, smaller portion of our payments will be for interest because there will be less to charge interest on, and a larger portion will be our principal repayment. Okay, let's start building our amortization schedule. So here we'll have the date. So let's start at 25th of September. Let's say it's going to be our first repayment. Then we need the year. So it's going to be easier to sum those up here. Going to be equal to year. Then we need the period number. Just align those to the right. And here we have the beginning balance, which is going to start from here. We then have our payment, which is the total payment that we're going to make, and then we need to break this down into principal and interest before arriving at our ending balance. And remember, for our ending balance, this is going to be our beginning balance plus only our principal, because the interest does not reduce what we owe. Okay, let's align those to the right, bold them, underline them. Okay, so let's see how we can calculate those here. There are three formulas in Excel that we're going to use, and those are the PMT formula is for the total payment, as our first element here is a rate, and we have to keep in mind that we're calculating on a monthly basis because our periods are months and we're paying every month. This is our annual interest, and let's just fix it and divide it over 12 to get to the monthly interest. Then we need the number of periods. This is our number of periods, and let's fix that as well. and we need the present value. So the present value is always the first one here. So let's just fix it up here, and that's our formula. So format those. So our payment each month for 60 months will be 424,000. Now we need to split that into principal and interest, because if, let's say, we bring that down and let's use the EO month formula here. So we just want to move that over by 1 month and format it as a date. We can copy our year formula here, and for the period, let's just go previous plus 1. Our beginning balance is going to be our ending balance, and our payment is going to be the same formula, and our ending balance is going to be our same formula. So we need to bring that down up to the point where period is 60, using Control D to bring that down. Okay, let's go up to here, 67. We can clean those after that. And you see that if we just grab the 60 periods, we're actually paying 25.4 million for the 22.5 million that we got. So we need to split that into principal payments and interest payment. So our principal will be PPMT function, which is principal payment. And we're going to need the rate, fix it with F4, and divide it by 12. We're going to need the current period. That's why we have it here. We're going to need the number of periods, the 60, and fix those. And we need the present value, which is the outstanding amount of the debt, and fix this one as well. Okay, let's format this one. So our principal payment in the first period is 330,000. One way to calculate the interest is just to deduct the principal from the payment. But just to make sure that we're working correctly, let's use the formula. So it's IPMT from interest payment. We need the rate, which is our 5%, fix that, divide it over 12. We need the period, the number of periods, fixed with F4, and the present value fixed with F4. And you see that we got the same number. Okay, let's copy those down with Control D. And you can see that as soon as we go beyond period number 60, we're getting an error, because now the number of periods is below the current period. So the formula doesn't know what to do. So we can just clean those. And you can see that in 60 periods, the portion of the principal repayment increases and the portion of the interest decreases, because let's say here at the beginning we're paying interest over the total beginning balance, but here we're only paying over what's left here. And most importantly, at the end of the 60th period, we are at a 0 outstanding debt. That's probably the best way to model debt repayments and creating a full amortization schedule. And what we can do here is just use a SUMIFS formula. Our sum range for the debt service, I want to split it between debt service and interest charges, is going to be our principal. I'm going to fix that with F4. Then our year, so our criteria range, our year, fix that with F4, and we want this to be equal to calendar year 2021. And just to make sure, this is a number, and I've pressed Control 1, and just before general, just typed in CY in quotes, and it adds it as a format here. Then we can extend this to the end, and you can see that the total amount we're gonna pay, because our loan ends in August 31st, 2026, is 22.5 million, which is our debt balance. So we're gonna repay the total amount within those 6 years. Let's do the same for the interest. SUMIFS. Our sum range will be the interest here, fix that with F4. Then our criteria range is going to be our year, fix that with F4, and we want it to be this year. Okay, and we have our amortization schedule added here per year as debt service and interest charges. And by doing this, we can see straight away that in the first year, we're left with quite a lot of cash for distribution because our loan starts from the 25th of September, so we only have like a couple of payments. But next year, when we're having a full year of repayment and our cash from operations is still ramping up, you can see that we'll actually be left with quite a low amount of cash, which may be an issue for the business. Let's say in a scenario where we're looking to acquire this business and we know that this is their net result and want to acquire them by taking a loan and paying the current owner these 22.5 million, we would usually look for a situation where the business itself can repay this loan for us. But the idea is that it's going to repay the loan and then something is going to be left for us. And in this case, we're looking at 2 to 3 years where we're not actually going to see a lot of cash inflow from this business. So in different scenarios, this might be actually a deterrent to doing a deal. But let's go ahead and see a couple other ways that we can use to model debt service. So I'm going to just create a copy of the whole sheet. Here, we're not going to have the periods. What we can do is, okay, we know that we have a monthly payment of 400,000. And let's just delete all those. Those are the same, the period is the same, beginning balance is the same. We don't actually have the whole payment, but we know that our principal repayment is gonna be 400,000. Let's fix that. So we can copy it down after that. And our interest can be calculated on the beginning balance. So this is going to be equal to minus our beginning balance for this period, multiplied by our interest rate, fix it with F4, and don't forget to divide it over 12 because we're still doing this on a monthly basis and this is an annual interest. Our ending balance formula is the same. So now if we go ahead and here we did it with end of month, let's do next month, and all the rest should be fine to copy down, and we just need to make sure that this is the previous period plus 1 and this is equal to our ending balance from the previous period. So now we can start copying this down, and we're gonna see at some point that our ending balance starts to become negative. And the problem is that we're in no way checking what's left to pay before we deduct our principal. So let's go ahead and extend this formula and just say, okay, this is gonna be if our monthly payment, fix it with F4, is below our current beginning balance, then give me minus our monthly payment, fix it with F4, otherwise give me minus our remaining balance. So the idea is that if we have 200 here, our monthly payment is going to be larger, larger than 200, so instead of just giving minus 400, it's going to give us minus the 200 here. Okay, let's copy this down, and you can see that in the 57th month, we're pretty much done with our loan. This is another way to model it when we have less information. In such cases, we can even go ahead and say, okay, we're gonna get 22.5, we'll negotiate with the bank to pay 400 a month because that's what we can afford, and the interest rate is gonna be around 5%, and just quickly and roughly model that. If we want to do it even quicker and it's not for a really detailed model, we just want to get some rough estimation, we can even go ahead and let's just copy that, and we can just say that we're going to do an annual payment, and it's going to be Oops, let's just make it be like 12 times our 400,000, so 4,800,000. And you can see that right now our formulas work, so we're repaying it within 5 years, but something's wrong with our interest, and that's because we're dividing it over 12, and now we're calculating per year, so this should continue to be the full amount here. Okay, let's copy that down, and our interest is okay, but as you can see, now everything is jumbled in here, and that's because our formulas here are misleading, is showing this to be 21. So what we want here is we want to move those by 12 months. Let's copy down. So now we can see that each next payment is in a different year, and we don't even need that. If we're calculating it on annual basis, we can just link those to the principal amounts and the interest amounts here, and just calculate it really quickly without having all this here. The problem is that if we simplify it that way, we're actually getting an adverse effect, because this way assumes that the interest is paid on top of the whole beginning balance, but we don't consider the fact that this beginning balance actually drops each month if we're paying monthly, and this should be annual. That only works like completely correct if we're paying annually, but it's still a pretty good approximation if we just want to like do a quick and rough estimation. It's worth noting that you see that if we calculate it properly, we get 2.6 or 2.7 million of interest, and if we oversimplify it, we go all the way up to 3.2. Which again can be looked at as just a more conservative way of building our model. The last way that we can do it is if we really have like almost zero knowledge on how the whole loan thing is going to work out. So what we can do then is we can just say, okay, we don't have the annual payment or the monthly payment. We're assuming a 5% interest, and we can just go ahead and assume that we're going to pay that in 5 years. So our principal payment now is going to be minus our full amount, fix it with F4, and divide it over the period of years, also fixed with F4. Copy that down, and you can see that we get the same issue as before, but since we know it's only 5 years, we don't need to overcomplicate this formula. We can just delete all those. And that way the interest jumps even a bit more because we're actually here, we're assuming we're no longer looking at those. We're using them for the formulas now, but we're not considering that this starts in September, so we're pretty much getting a full payment in this year. And this is really a further oversimplification of things. And because this way we're paying a little less per annum than we were paying here, we're just gonna go ahead and get a bit more interest. Those are a few ways to calculate your debt service and your interest charges for a few years when you're projecting, forecasting, estimating, building a budget, or just building a high-level overview model of a business. And you can apply that in the scenario that I was talking on when you want to see if a potential acquisition makes sense, if you want to fund it with debt. But you can also do that when you're doing like a 3 to 5 year model for your own business or the company you work at, or even in your like 1 year to 18-month budget that's more detailed. So obviously, depending on the amount of detail, and in certain circumstances, you would want to know everything about the debt, and you would want to go like with a full amortization schedule, or if it's not amortized, if it's just like paid like flat principal repayment and then calculate interest, you would want to go and calculate this on a monthly basis. And certain scenarios where you want to get like a full when you want to get like a high level overview of the next 5 years or something like that, then you're already getting into a lot of assumptions to get to this line, the one that we named cash from operations. It doesn't always make sense to go into so much detail and like build out full repayment or amortization schedules. Then you can go with a more rough estimation of what your debt service and your interest charges are going to be over the next years. And yep, that's pretty much it. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, and maybe even punch the bell icon to receive notifications every time I upload a new video. Till then, thanks for watching, and I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Hey guys, welcome to another episode. So lately, I've been doing so much modeling lately. Haven't had time to put out any videos, but yeah, welcome to the next episode.